So I tend to just jump into things, so let's do that, right? So in order to understand the emergence of an alternative path, we need to really understand technology's cycle in society. And I kind of like to look at it from the human level instead of the academic level. Sometimes those two go separate ways. Technology tends to disrupt something. It tends to have a purpose, a meaning, a reason of doing. And then people start using it. Usually the people using it either know intimately about the technology or the field, or they just like new stuff, shiny things. That's why we wait in line around the Apple store for days. But eventually the rest adapt. They're like, okay, obviously there's something good about this technology. There must be a reason. Let's incorporate it into what we do. And then let's improve upon it. Let's find new ways of doing. But at the end of the day, the goal is to connect people. Any good technology, any sustainable technology, any technology that has an impact connects people. If it doesn't serve that purpose, it's not going to last. And this is even true for healthcare. What does healthcare do? It helps people connect for longer. Here's a picture from 1870. It's really hard to find. It's a mailman, horse-drawn carriage. There's the beginnings of an automobile there in the front, and he's delivering mail. We're still using this technology today. Yeah, not the horse, but the rest of it actually still works. And it's a way of connecting. It's a means for me to send a letter great distance without having to personally travel. At some point, someone said, let's connect better. Let's make a difference. Let's find a way to do more. And then, in 1875, the first voice transmission was sent by telephone. This was huge, huge. Why? Because with a letter, I might send out a message, you might interpret it incorrectly, and I get this ridiculous response back. With phone, that's no longer the case. I can synthesize, I can communicate, we can actually collaborate outside of our own geographic reach. It's no longer local to our town. And the cool part about any of these technologies is when you can do something new with it, find a difference, find a way. My favorite example is farming. It may make sense for today. And I'll tell you why. Farmers in about 1875 to 1880 said, this telephone thing, this sounds really cool. We really would like to use it. Let's say you all have a farm, and I have a farm, and we're all kind of in the same area, and one of my cattle strays off, and I need to find it. How would I do that? I would go maybe on my horse, drive around, spend 2 days trying to track it down. They said, what happens if I can just call you up, and you can tell me, hey, Alon, found your cow, it's eating my grass, make it stop. Well, then I would go out there and get it. You know what the problem was? Back then, there was only a few cities that had telephone. New York is one of them. But you know what they realized? The fencing was electrically conductive because of the barbed wire. They actually had a whole entire network of communication patterns within their farmland. And they started connecting telephones to their fences and talking to each other. That which was used to segregate land, people, and animals now got used to connect. It's amazing. Side effects. That sounds like a good story. Let's look at the ways it changes technology in society. Here's a picture of a couple going out on a trip. The husband is closing the door of the garage. The wife is talking to the neighbors, and they're getting ready to go to their next journey. And at some point in time, you no longer have to open or close the garage door. You could just push a button. It was the remote garage door opener, and it had a purpose: safety from the environment, from intruders, comfort. To be honest, the first television remote was called the Lazy Bones, right? It puts it in perspective. We're lazy people. But it did something else as well. What it did is it allowed each and every one of us who live in the suburbs to leave our house and drive to our office without ever having to interact with a single person. That fundamentally changed suburban life. Rush hour traffic exists for a reason. It's because everybody leaves their home at the same time. Everybody leaves their office to go home at the same time. It used to be the case that when people came in and out of their homes to go to work, they were able to talk to each other, communicate, say, how are you doing? What's your day look like? When you came home, how was your day? Gone. Got eliminated. That's an example of a technology that actually removed part of the ways that we interacted. So we need to start looking at connecting with impact. How can we actually make a difference? Now, crowdfunding is the act of many people contributing money to a project in exchange for a good or service. especially when trying to democratize opportunity. And I'm the co-founder of a platform called Rocket Hub, which just happens to be one of the older and larger platforms out there right now. And everybody always asks me, Alon, can you tell us about this new story, this new revolution? We really want to hear more about this crowdfunding thing. I see it everywhere. People are raising money. What's going on? And I always like to use examples of how it's really old. I love talking about how technologies are actually very old. And the old technologies tend to be focused on how people do. So let's stay within our storyline. It's 1885. That's New York City. I got a little too excited with the buildings, but it's New York in 1885, somehow. And they were just about to receive the Statue of Liberty from the French. Yeah, I guess. And they received it, and they had a problem with the pedestal. They said, we don't have one. What are we going to do about this? And what they typically do, and we do this today, when you need to build something really big, you go to really rich people, and you say, can you give us money for this? We'll name it after you. Museums, hospitals, universities, parks. I mean, some of you guys in the audience, I'm sure have a bench named after you somewhere. And they said, instead of doing that, let's actually reach out to everybody out there. Let's instead find a way to interact with them and start crowdfunding this project and give them in return for their contributions miniature figurines, the perks that we're talking about in return. And 120,000 people across the nation contributed. Nowadays, it's worth about $2.6 million, and that pedestal got built. And in return, they actually received their Statue of Liberty. That's incredible, and I'm sure if you track your family histories back to that time, a few of you probably have that figurine somewhere locked up in your garage. What we're doing is we're disrupting society in a very big way. We're taking that pyramid scheme, that sense of hierarchy, and we're just fundamentally changing it. It's no longer the top-down approach where the people on the top are capital-heavy, making the decisions on what is right, what can we do, what can we not do. Instead, it's anybody along those lines can create a project, raise the funds, just like the Statue of Liberty did, and drive impact. And now this concept of open source that we've been kind of focusing on today to some extent becomes open-mindedness. Because some of the best innovations and ideas happen at the grassroots level, at the ground when you just need that initial capital to get going, that initial support. And now we're actually providing a pathway for that to happen. Here's a story. This is of a shoemaker in El Paso, Texas. He wanted to create a shoe, a superior shoe. He wanted to create a shoe that absorbs impact and shock and returns it as energy while you run. Nike, Adidas, Reebok, all the marketing companies, they didn't like it. And yes, marketing, not apparel, it's marketing. And he said, I'm going to go to crowdfunding and I'm going to raise the funds. He raised $42,700. To me, that's a lot of money. And for him, it was a lot of money. Because what he did is he created a new shoe line. And he provided people with perks. And he sold 727 pairs of shoes. I'm actually, you ready for this? Here we go. I'm wearing a pair of them right now. And this amazing part of it is the shoe was all he had was this mock-up model, a demonstration of what he's trying to do with springs. 727 pairs of shoes were given out as part of this project. What's important about that is it's 727 stories. They are all a part of it. They all made it happen. And that's the power around what we're doing here. When you have something great, you want to share it. And at that moment in time, the shoemaker became a shoe company out of Texas, El Paso, tumbleweeds. And what's interesting about that is when you then have something great, you can finally share it. And he's launching another project right now. It's live on the site. He's raised over $250,000 so far in conjunction with the TV show Duck Dynasty. I'm not even joking. So this is the emergency shelter system. It's called World Housing Solutions. I have it right here. And what they have is you'll see 6 to 7 guys build a shelter within about 3 to 4 hours. This is a shelter that they designed for emergency relief. It started with Haiti, and they're now trying to apply it to the Jersey Shore. And they started giving out rewards, perks. This is actually a perk from that project. It's a mock-up of the shelter. And once you're able to provide families with temporary shelter instead of what you see with FEMA, which are very smelly trailers, you provide them with an ability to actually be comfortable and be safe while they're rebuilding their homes. And what's incredible about that is they actually were able to do this without the help of anybody else but their community and their crowd. And they actually started selling units now to the US Navy. And they now have a government contract. That's amazing. That's an amazing story. because that was not possible before. That a group out of Florida said, we want to do something relevant. We want to do something relevant on the Jersey Shore. We want to do something relevant on the shores of Florida, and now we can actually do so. This is a project. They're sitting in the audience right now. They've launched, and they're just about to start their campaign, and they're focusing on how growing food and growing schools can restore the shore. And what I wanted to show you here is just how local things can actually get and how global things can actually get at the same time. We're at a point in time now when access is one of the most fundamentally valuable things out there. But it's not just about the access itself. It's about the fact that the access is democratic. Anybody, anywhere, with any kind of idea whatsoever now finally has the ability to reach out to people and make it happen. There used to be gatekeepers for that would validate your idea and say, this is not good enough, or this is good enough. And when you start talking about wanting to rehabilitate the shore, rebuild, and do more, you need to start thinking about who's going to do it and why. Who are the people that matter, and which communities are going to make it happen? And to be honest, it's going to start within this community. And it's going to spiral outwards. But in order to begin, you got to start somewhere. And that comes with access. So looking at that, knowing that we're at a point in human history now when information can be received from your cell phone, then the question is, what do you do with that information? You need to find a way to implement it. You need to find a way of doing. And what we're trying to accomplish here is that capability. Thank you.